about James. He's known to some as Pop or Dad, but to me he was always Granddad. And hearing all these different stories is really interesting because I think we all have a slightly different angle and something to share about what we knew about him. But one of the things I think we're really lucky to have in our family are some really amazing photographs. And some of you might have seen them because I think some of them are shared. But just one that always really struck me as classic. I think it was one from the South Pacific where he's lying on a hammock, drinking some kind of drink, maybe a pina colada from a coconut, smoking a big cigar, being fanned by two topless Polynesian women. So,
didn't have such a tough life, huh?
Yeah. But the thing that I think about when I look at those photographs is what an amazing life he had and all the amazing things that he did. I know many people have spoken about that, and he just was really inspirational to me. I don't know, I think it's in my blood. I always wanted to travel and see the world, and before I even really got to know Granddad, when I look back at those photos, I think, now I know where that comes from. And that's a Cobb trait.
Yes.
Being interested in the world, being curious, being inquisitive, wanting to know more, wanting to know more by doing it, getting out there and doing it and seeing it for yourself. That's something I really took from Granddad. And so many stories. That's another thing I think as I hear everyone speak, there's so many interesting different stories, and we know that he was an incredible storyteller, but each of us has our own stories as well. When I look at the different photographs and hear the different stories and hear that some of them have been recorded and he's been written about in several books, I have this idea that I'd like to propose. Now that we have modern technology and email, I think it would be neat if there were a way we could all stay in touch. It's so nice, I mean, despite the sad circumstances, it's so nice to come together, see you all, and be with you all. And I think we should, more than just keep in touch, I think it would be neat. Some of the cousins have been talking about this, to consolidate some of these stories. I mean, we've got photographs, we've got stories, we've got so many memories of Granddad, such a rich, incredible life that, I don't know, I feel like we should put it together somehow and see maybe if we could even put a book on his life. Let's just brainstorm right now.
A website would be great. You know, like
in the works.
You already have one started, right?
Yeah.
Just enhance that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, that's what I like.
Nashville, Tennessee. My wife Janet is the lady in the red hat, and my son Shelby lives in Hollywood. But my wife and I are very lucky people. We got to live on Top Key with Yvonne and Jim. I didn't call it Pop or Dad or anything else. I called him Jim. And Jim and I, in 23 years, I don't know how many golf matches we played together, but we played at least 3 times each week. And we played a good golf course down there, which was a 9-hole par 3 golf course. And we were on hole number 2 one day, and Jim hit his ball, and it rolled right up to the flag. On this hole, it was about 60 yards, not that far, but anyway, his ball was sitting almost on the hole. And we thought this was a great shot, but when I played, I don't know where my ball went, but we were very thrilled that his ball was laying right next to the pin. So we started walking up, and while we were walking up looking at the ball, the wind blew the flagpole over, and the ball dropped.
Hole in one.
Hole in one. And we were on the same hole the next day, and there were 3 young fellas teeing off on the hole when we walked up, and one said to the others, he said, I heard some SOB made a hole in one on this hole. Jim says, yeah, I was that SOB. But been playing golf 3 days a week. We had lunch in between the 9 holes, so we had a lot of lunches together. And I guess the funniest story he ever told me, that he was flying an aircraft at Pearl Harbor when it was invaded. And the day before the invasion, he was flying his plane over the harbor there, and he sees a submarine that was surfaced right in the entrance to the harbor. So he flew over it, and he radioed in and says, are any of our submarines in the harbor? And they says, no, why? He said, well, there's an enemy submarine, I believe, is in the harbor. And they said, well, don't drop any bombs. Circle around 3 times to make absolutely sure. And on the 3rd trip around, the submarine had gone down. And he had this plane full of what we call ash cans. And that's about a 55-gallon drum full of powder. And he dropped this powder just where he thought the submarine went down. And after the war was over, Jim was head of a large fleet in the Pacific. And for courtesy, they were visiting the Tokyo, and they invited the admirals from the Japan Navy out for dinner on the boat. And Jim and this admiral were eating at the same table. And the Japanese said, well, where were you during Pearl Harbor? Jim says, I was at Pearl Harbor. And the Japanese said, well, I was there too. And I was captain of a submarine, and we were there taking pictures, and said some SOB was flying a plane over us and dropped an ash can after we had gone down, and everything shook off the wall in my submarine, and we like to never got home. And Jim said, well, I was that SOB.
Petition the Navy because in the history books, Jim is not credited with firing the first shot in defense of the United States. By God, he did. We should straighten that out.
Are you the one with the hammock photograph?
What's that?
You have the hammock photograph?
Yeah.
I'd like a copy of that.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I can find it. I've got the hammock photograph. Yep. Okay.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for taking such good care of me. Nice talking to you. My pleasure. Thank you. January today. So nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Yeah. Good meeting you. So the doctor said.
I did everything. That way I can get this
Yes, these are the bikes. This afternoon. We're going to head on down to Washington and check in with them. Where are you staying? Yeah. Nice feeling the way things are. Absolutely.